Alright, I'm ready. Hello, classmates. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for letting me talk about my favorite passion, my favorite indoor activity, video games. Now you see, when I was a boy of 4 years old, I played video games and my father gave me my first console, the Super Nintendo. And yes, he gave me great games like Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, Super Metroid, and so on and so on. And eventually I would get a Sega Genesis. But at that moment, the video game bug kind of bit me. I found it a way to interact with my father, who constantly was keeping at work with cab driving and everything. But it kept going, and even though his passion for it kind of diminished, I personally kept going. So over time, I would play things like the Nintendo 64, the PlayStation 2, etc., etc. And then I got into more, and I would always consider myself a more casual gamer at that point. I'd still play a lot of video games, but I wasn't following the industry as closely as I do today. I would say that started when I was probably in my high school years, where I developed the love and affection. I watched a television show and got into it. I watched the trade shows and everything, and really got absorbed into the material and how the industry works as a whole. I would watch, just every trade show I could, not to mention go to every website. Nowadays, I actually go to websites multiple times. I even work at a video game retail outlet, a little known place called GameStop. You might have heard of it, 5,000 locations. And so the thing of it is though, sometimes I'll get approached by people who have this superiority complex. They say to me that, well, video games are all fine and that, but books are more important. And I say to them, that's simply not true. Video games on their own have artistic value. They're not just this old school pixels of Pong and even Super Mario World to some degree was a very simplistic game. Games have evolved since then. They've become more of a movie or just art form. You have things like the music, the art direction, how they take subtle things like Art Deco and actually inform their players about it and color this entire world that you have to explore. As well as things like game design and problem solving. There's a lot of intrinsic value as well as just beneficial values that a lot of people just don't see. And whenever I hear someone say to me with this superior complex of, yes, well, books, you use your imagination. They cause you to learn how to read and things like that. I say to them, it's like, well, you can learn a lot from video games. You can learn about the culture of a video game, even if it is a little bit pulled. A great example being the Assassin's Creed franchise, which recently came out with the Revolutionary Wartime. Now, not being completely accurate to that time, it does paint a relatively interesting picture and gives you a good idea of how that world would look, whether it be the architecture and so on. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for having me here. It's a great part of being in this class, and I hope that you'll hear more about my video game loving in the future.